Hi, in this video I'm going to explain what common mode rejection ratio is and actually how to measure it in this particular case of a high voltage differential probe here. But it doesn't have to be a high voltage differential probe, available on the EEVblog store by the way, discount coupon code down below. Any differential amplifier circuit, be an op amp or a discrete transistor one, it will have a common mode rejection ratio. So let's have a look at it. We're going to measure it with the brand spanking new Rohde Schwarz MXO4 series scope here, 12-bit jobby, because why not? It's beautiful. So the common mode rejection ratio of a differential amplifier, in this case a differential probe, as the name suggests, is just the ratio of the differential gain of the amplifier divided by the common mode gain of the amplifier. And what is differential and what is common mode? Well, a differential amplifier measures the difference between two inputs here. There essentially is no ground reference. It is a differential signal, and a differential amplifier will have a gain of that differential signal. That's its job. If your differential amplifier has a gain of 10 and you put 1 volt differential across here, it doesn't matter where it is in the circuit, it's a differential voltage, doesn't matter about the ground reference, it'll multiply that by 10 and that's its differential gain. Now you divide that by the common mode gain. Now what is the common mode gain? Well, instead of the differential voltage across here, it is an external voltage applied to both of them at the same time. So in this particular case, okay, we've got these long leads here, and we could have like external either capacitive coupling or EMI coupling into the probe like this. So they're basically getting onto the probes in the same way. And this is why the wires are twisted like this. And if you're measuring a differential signal, it means any external noise or interference should, in theory, apply to both wires at the same time. So it's an external reference, in this particular case, reference to the grounded output of our differential probe. So the job of a differential amplifier is to amplify the difference between its positive and negative input while rejecting all of the signal, or much of the signal as it can, that is applied commonly to both of these wires. So that's why it's a common mode rejection ratio. So in theory, your differential amplifier should have an infinite common mode rejection ratio. It just measures difference here and rejects everything else. It has no gain at all of any common mode signal being picked up by both wires. But in practice, no, that's not going to happen. Just the design of the amplifier itself, and most importantly, the matching of the input resistor network in here. And I've done a teardown of a high voltage differential probe down like this. I'll link it in up here and down below if you haven't seen it. And just the matching between the resistors on here is pretty much determines the common mode rejection ratio of this probe. Because usually, like the op amps used inside here, they're usually pretty good. They're going to have like a rejection ratio of like, you know, over 100 dB or something, whereas the resistor divider drops that down to like 40 or even less. Now, a product like this HVP70 differential probe, it'll typically have a common mode rejection ratio figure measured at various spot frequencies. Maybe, if you're lucky, you might get like a response curve of common mode rejection ratio, because it's going to vary depending on the frequency. So it's going to change. So they typically, here's the values for this HVP70, and it gives us 4 spot values there. And the ratio, you can see, is, you know, like at 10 megahertz minus 40 dB. And it is usually given in a dB figure, but doesn't have to be, because it's just a ratio. So you could just use the ratio figure. And the interesting thing about this is that the common mode rejection ratio is, as I said, the differential gain divided by the common mode gain. And that actually comes out at a positive value. But so why is the data sheet negative? Well, it's kind of, there's no like standard for this kind of thing. So you just sort of have to like understand that when you're talking a negative number, in this particular case, minus 60 dB common mode rejection would be better than minus 40 dB. But if you specify it as a positive one, as you might get on, say, a op amp data sheet, here's an example, you would get the higher the value is going to be better. So that positive or negative thing, just a little trap for young players, just be aware of that. Right, so how do we measure the common mode rejection ratio and verify the common mode rejection ratio of this probe. First thing you want to do is, as I said, you want to twist the wires like this so that any external noise is equally picked up on both. And then you need a signal generator. In this particular case, this new Rohde Schwarz MXO4 can go up to 100 megahertz, so very nice. And then we want to feed the output of the SIGGEN into a 50 ohm terminated load so that we don't have any transmission line issues whatsoever, no reflections causing problems. I've done videos on that and how you can goof that up in noise measurements and stuff like that, so I'll link in that video up here and down below if you haven't seen it. So here I'm using an external 50 ohm 2 watt termination, a series termination, even though the scope has a built-in. If you look down here, you could actually come a gutser because this is only like got a half watt rating. It's less than 5 volts RMS. Just, you know, you don't want to blow up your scope when you do something like this because you want to use as high a voltage as possible. But in this particular case, I'm just showing you it's better to use a high rated external terminator just so you don't blow up your really expensive, beautiful shiny scope. And then we're just tapping off right across this 50 ohm terminator load here. So here's the negative terminal and here's the positive terminal. So what we want to do is connect both of these inputs together, short them together and connect to the positive input like this. Why the positive input? Because it means that we're applying a voltage relative to the output here, because the output is ground referenced like this. So we're actually referencing it to the output. So we're effectively feeding that signal generator voltage into both of these leads, i.e. a common mode signal relative to the grounded output. Because if you remember, all the grounds on your scope are all common. So this is the input signal and the output, and they're effectively joined. They're common. So what happens if I just connect one of these to here? Well, you saw it. The green signals are output, the yellow is our input there, and our green signal, it gives us a nice, clean output like that. Okay, so our differential probe is, because this one's just flapping around in the breeze, right, doing nothing, and you'll see that just jump all over the place there. And if I touch it, look at that, like we're picking up all sorts of crap. And you'll get the same, exactly the same thing if you connect the negative up like that, right? The exact same thing will happen because this is a differential amplifier. It doesn't care. You're just unbalancing that input. But if you connect both of them on like that to the same point, then bingo, we've got a really small signal. So this probe isn't perfect. It's got a common mode rejection ratio. So there you go. There's a signal being amplified even though that input is completely shorted. And you'll notice that goes away if we don't connect up to that. Okay, there's our ground there, so we've just got like the inherent noise of that amplifier. And it doesn't matter what I do to the probes here, but this one, if we hook it back up, you'll notice that if I start playing with those probes, things start happening, okay? It starts like being influenced because like we've got these long leads here. That's why a differential probe with like really shorter leads is better, but these have them, most probes have them built in though, unfortunately. So what happens if I untwist those leads like this? We're going to get the same signal, but we potentially have more variation. Check it out. You actually get huge differences. Like if I take my hand away from that, right, you can get large differences like that. So if you don't twist the leads and keep that common mode signal, right, you can completely screw up and come a gutser on your measurement. Now that I've explained what we're doing and I've shown you the setup here, there's no reason to look at this anymore. So I'm going to actually go over to a remote desktop view and we'll do a direct screen capture of this. It'll just be nicer. And because I can. Isn't this schmick? Look at this. Ethernet remote control. It's got a built-in web browser, so we can just go to the IP address and bam, we're in. So we can do some like configuration and file manager stuff, but let's just go to full screen here. So channel 1, the yellow one, that's our SIGGEN there. We've got 1 volt per division, 50 megahertz bandwidth, because you do want a bandwidth limit, and this scope actually has some cool software bandwidth limiting options in it, which we might see later. And 1 megohm input input DC coupled, DC or AC, doesn't matter. And channel 2, also the same 50 megahertz bandwidth here. Leave it on 2 millivolts there, shall we? Now you can see we've got a real fuzzy wuzzy waveform here. Now, of course, this is a 12-bit scope. You don't necessarily need a 12-bit scope for, you know, this particular application that we're doing right here, but 10 or 12 bits, more betterer, but we can actually go more than this. So you can actually see up here, up the top, it's telling us just that's the basic 12-bit, but we can go higher because if I get my ugly mug out of here, we can see that I've got a HD mode down here, a high definition mode, and we can actually set that on. Whoop, oh, there we go. We instantly set it on, and you'll notice that our 12 bits went to 16 bits up here. But before we go ahead with that, I'll just mention the signal gen here. Now, you want this to be as higher amplitude as possible because the output signal that you're actually trying to measure, that common mode signal, is really low. So the higher the input signal, the better. So I've gone up to the maximum amplitude here of 5 volts peak to peak here, and we've got a frequency of 10 megahertz because that's just the you know, a typical figure we've got in the data sheet, which we want to try and verify. So we want to clean this up a bit more, so let's do some averaging. So we'll go up to the acquisition up here, and we're actually in sample mode, so we'll go down here to average mode, and then boom, we can do like 40 averages, something like that. We can take the time base out a bit like that. So we've got a decent number of signals. You can see that our average there, we've got 40 averages there, and that's just cleaned that up a tad. But you can see how we are dealing with the wobblies down here, because as I said, the test setup is everything. So if you can shield it and keep the leads short and make sure that they're twisted and everything else, it's going to be better. So what we need now is to compare the input signal to the output signal. That'll give us our common mode rejection ratio. In this particular case, that it's actually negative here. So at 10 megahertz, it's minus 40 dB here. So we want to flip that around here to give the output divided by the input. Now to measure this ratio between input and output, we can either measure the peak to peak value or the RMS value. Doesn't matter. RMS is, you know, it's better, it's more accurate. But you might think that we use this RMS value here and that 1.4 millivolts like that. But I've done a video on this where that RMS value, that includes any DC offset component. So that's not quite what you want. So let's go into the measurement menu here. Unfortunately, they don't have it in the basic category. You've got to go down to vertical there. There you go, standard deviation, AC, RMS. I've done an entire video on that. So we want channel 1. But I can actually go in here like this. I can double click on that and I can choose specific type, AC, RMS, like that. So let's actually get a few waveforms on screen here so it's a bit more accurate. And once again, we can turn the statistics on there. Come on. Can't double click to get into the menu. Oops, I had the wrong bandwidth there. So we have to use the 50 megahertz bandwidth here because we're measuring 10 meg. 20 meg is a bit close to the frequency. You want to be a bit more than double above like that. So, you know, 50 is not a bad value. So we get our confuser out here and we look at the RMS value here. Don't be confused by, remember how I mentioned standard deviation before? You got to watch my standard deviation video. The standard deviation here is not referring to the AC RMS. It's referring to the standard deviation of the standard deviation AC RMS signal. So it's like, it is very confusing. So yeah, don't come a gutser there. So we need to get our confuser out and 883 microvolts. So microvolts, we won't get any more precision than that, divided by our input because we want a negative number. So 1.75 volts. Then we want to take the log of that and then multiply that by 20, not 10, because this is a voltage. So we get minus 66, basically. That doesn't sound right, because our spec over here says minus 40 at 10 megahertz. Why is it way better? Way betterer. Because this CMRR is what's called input referred. It's referring to the input of the actual amplifier, in this case inside the probe here, before it gets gained up by the amplifier. Now, if you noticed in the video before, we're in the 10-to-1 division ratio setting, so there's a gain of 10 in there. So we have to account for that gain of 10 in here in our dB figure. Now, you know, a good data sheet, they should actually specify that and tell you exactly what it is. Now, this is a good marketing trick, because marketing can make the common mode rejection figure sound a lot better just by saying, oh, that's input referred instead of like output referred. So in this particular case, our times 10 probe over there, times 10, of course, in dBs is 20 dB, and times 100 would be 40 dB. Times 1,000 would be 60 dB. It goes up 20 dB for each order of magnitude step. So we have to actually add on 20 dB to that. Minus 66 dB becomes minus 46 dB. So yes, it does actually meet that specification. So it beats it by 6 dB. Not too shabby. So let's repeat this at 1 megahertz. So it should get better by about 10 dB. So got this 46 here. Maybe we'll get 56, will we? So there you go, 423 microvolts divided by 1.8 volts there, and log times 20 equals minus 72. Yep, add 20 dB to that, so it's minus 52. So there you go, this typical spec is minus 50, we're getting minus 52. Yeah, comes out. But if we try and measure it down at 50 hertz here, which is supposed to be minus 80 dB, so it's 20 dB increase over 20 kilohertz, you can see that, yeah, it's gone to nothing. Again here, 500 microvolts per division, and there's nothing there. I mean, we can take that figure and punch it into the calculator, but like, there's just nothing there. We're basically measuring the RMS value of the noise at this point. Anyway, you can see the process there. That's how we can measure the spot frequency. Now, how can we get a plot over frequency? I'm glad you asked. We can do this using, if we go into apps here, FRA, or Frequency Response Analyzer. So let's open this bad boy up. Yeah, we can get a plot of this over frequency when we can also get phase as well. So we're going to put our stop frequency in here of 10 megahertz. And start frequency, yeah, we can actually start down at that 50 hertz. So we set up our input as channel 1, our output is channel 2, 50 hertz to 10 megahertz. Amplitude, once again, you want the maximum amplitude. Run on this. Now watch down in the bottom corner down here. As it's adjusted, it's set to AC, and then it's adjusting the range all in real time, and you can see it's slowly plotting here. It's only a small, it's got a table and a thing. We could zoom that later if we really wanted to. 50 hertz, 100 hertz, right? It's down in the noise. It's starting to get out of the noise there. We can adjust the range in a minute to actually see that, and boom, we are done. Now, I don't think there's anything in here that allows us to set the offset there. Just remember that we have to add 20 dB onto these figures here. So you can see that, you know, around about 5 megahertz there, it does really, you know, it starts to, gets worse. The higher that is, the worse it is. And you can see that the red plot here is the gain. We're not too, that doesn't matter for our common mode rejection ratio, but if we actually extend the bandwidth on that, we should be able to actually see a phase reversal. So at 10 megahertz here, you can see minus 64, which is minus 44. The 1 megahertz figure, so minus 71 is minus 51 dB there. So yeah, that meets the spec. So if we go up to the full bandwidth here, 70 megahertz of this probe, let's rerun that again. I'm not going to go low frequency this time. So it's auto ranging each time it actually takes these samples, which is really quite nice. So it's maximizing its dynamic range there. And it's also adjusting its bandwidth as well. You'll see that the, yeah, it just jumped from 1 to 2 megahertz, 3 megahertz, see? So it's actually software adjusting that bandwidth. This is really cool. This is a very good frequency response analyzer. So we're looking for the phase response to actually reverse here. Oh, yep, there it is. There it is. That's totally expected. Not just a differential amplifier, it's normal amplifier behavior. But once again, phase doesn't mean anything here. Right up to 70 megahertz, minus 41, which is minus 21 dB. So it's a fairly sharp rise. So once you get above that 10 megahertz, that's why they don't give you a figure up at 50 meg or 70 meg. They once again, marketing just does, you know, stop at 10 megahertz. There you go. Common Mode Rejection Ratio. If you enjoyed it, give it a big thumbs up. As always, discuss it down below and subscribe to EEVblog 2 and my Odyssey channel where there's exclusive videos over there. If you want to see a couple of, I think I've got 2 exclusive videos of the Rohde Schwarz Oscilloscope, why it's actually been delayed, because we had to actually swap it. Yeah, this is a really sweet scope. So yeah, leave it in the comments. Do you want to see a teardown or do you want to see a feature review? It's got so many features, but I can show you some of the really cool stuff in this. It's going to be good. So anyway, catch you next time.